I come here, I just want to relax, and then stuff like this happens. And I was like, oh, I'm very sorry, but we gave you more butter, so everything's good now, right?
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by Jeremy Scott, the voice of Cinemasins.
Howdy.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Hi.
And today we're going to continue our series of Best of the Years We've Been Alive. We're getting into a new decade, the year 2000.
I am a man of constant sorrow.
I can't make new memories.
At my signal, unleash hell.
Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Help as much as I'm gonna hit. You see that car? Suggest you use it for you're not welcome anymore.
We live or we die by the clock.
God loves a terrier.
Is it better to burn out than to fade away?
In the year 2000.
Yes. Now, here's the
We all
thing.
have flashlights under
The
our
year
chins.
2000 is technically still part of the 20th century because there's no year zero, right?
Mhm.
But this is actually the beginning of a new decade for a new millennium. That's it was going to be the end of the millennium. Everybody thought 2000 was definitely the beginning of the new millennium. But then you had a bunch of, assholes who came out and said, there's no year zero. So this is really
Like
the last
Newman.
year. Yeah, like Newman. And they screwed it up for everybody. We wanted to have a nice even number to start everything off with. But,
The Newmanium.
Anyway, I guess you want to kick this off with Gladiator, Best Picture of 2000.
Sure.
Best picture.
Best Picture? No, not really.
I think my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, has seen this movie 300 times.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
I believe it is her very favorite movie ever, and I believe every time it comes up, I question her sanity.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to come out and say this is a bad movie. I don't think it's a great one either. But it was a phenomenon. It was just one of those movies that was not only a big, huge box office, but critical praise as well.
Yeah,
And
why
was
did it
on-
get so much critical praise? I mean, this is like Sword and Sandals typically haven't gotten that, right?
I really don't know. I don't know why this one did. Maybe it was just because I don't know. That back then, I guess the special effects seemed great. The tigers and stuff.
I think
in
the
there.
spectacle of the fighting was a little ahead of its time in the sword and sandal genre, if you will. But I think it's mostly Russell Crowe. This is his first huge star-making, really engaging, connecting with mass audiences. I think that's probably what made it such a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came a long way from like the tubby-ish character they played in LA Confidential and like just got all ripped up and gladiatorized and stuff.
Well, and even LA Confidential, he's sharing any of that movie's praise with 4 or 5 other people.
Mhm.
This was his first major movie starring role where I think he killed it performance-wise.
Yeah, he had done The Insider just before this, that was still more of an ensemble piece,
Right.
even though he was
The main character.
the main character of that movie. But this one is one where he is asked to carry it.
Yeah.
And he does. I mean, he's Russell Crowe's a great actor and everything. I like I said, I like this movie. I just felt like I was missing something that other people were just like quoting it to me, and they just loved it in a way that I couldn't quite understand. Joaquin Phoenix is really good in it.
He's
He
great.
is. Yeah,
He's really maybe the best part of the film, actually. I mean, he's so odious.
yeah.
He has a high odiosity.
Well, the incest kind of helps with that. Right?
Yeah.
As it is wont to do in film.
Yeah.
If you want to creep people out, just put a little incest in there and,
This is the new incest movie, Gladiator.
I don't know.
That's how you describe it.
It's pretty damn prominent
Is
in
it-
this movie.
Now, my question is, though, do they ever come right out and say that the kid is theirs?
I don't think so.
Because doesn't she have a husband that he kills?
Yeah.
And he put him on the front lines or
I
something
don't think
like that?
anything is overtly declared, but there are entire scenes where he's basically groping her.
No, there's definitely incest, or at least like an attempt at incest in this. I'm just saying that they I don't know, they put this kid in here. He's kind of a mystery, but they do say she's married, I guess. She was married.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and he like had him killed or something like that. And,
it's a very David, Bathsheba, Uriah kind of story.
Yeah.
You know, for those Bible fans out there.
Yeah, you dropped a Uriah on us.
Hey, I remember what I remember. Okay? I memorized a lot of the Bible when I was a kid.
This was the last role of Oliver Reed, who died during filming, and they do some weird stuff with his.
Is he the pit boss guy?
Yeah. And when he dies, he's like, they cut to a scene earlier in the movie that make it look like it's in that scene, but it's not. And it's so weird. But, you know, there wasn't, I don't know if they had really mastered that whole, well, they did it in the 90s with John Candy and all that. Used to do all the digital, like, inserts and stuff like that. This one, they just straight up find a scene from an earlier part of the movie and throw him in there. But anyway, good movie.
I'm not crapping on it.
Yeah, man, why did people love this so much?
Good quotes. Yeah. On My Mark, Unleash Hell, and Are You Not Entertained? And all that stuff.
Are You Not Entertained? Great lines in it and everything. I don't know. I don't get swept up with like
another big movie that was a hit that had one man carrying the show that everyone loved more than me was Castaway.
Oh, yeah.
And again, not a bad movie. Although, once you leave the island, I don't need any of that shit.
No. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's some good stuff in there, but it could have been cut down.
Well, I mean, him in the water and losing Wilson, that's all keepable. I mean, once he gets back to land and when the whole Helen Hunt's married and I'm going to kiss her but not actually go back with her. Like, I don't need any of the take the package to the farm lady.
Yeah.
I don't need any of that. Because what's on the island is so freaking good.
It is.
Well, and classically spoiled by the trailers because
Zemeckis does this all the time.
Because that's what Zemeckis' philosophy is about trailers. He feels like you should go ahead and spoil it and tell people what they're getting into when they want. And how can you argue? Castaway and What Lies Beneath, what he also came out with this year, had trailers that gave away huge plot points, and they were both big hits.
They were.
But I'm wondering how big of hits they might have been had he not done that with the trailers. Would they have been the same? Would it have been less?
I think Tom Hanks on an island at least is going to get the same amount of butts. What Lies Beneath could have been a different story.
Yeah.
But I mean, how good is Tom Hanks here that when he loses a volleyball friend, you almost cry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think my wife does cry. Like, how he sells that relationship, and it sort of makes sense in the way that, you know, a guy alone talking to himself might create this excuse to talk to himself.
And there's only one spot where he really looks like he's going crazy. You know,
right.
It's kind of halfway in where he's just like really having a conversation. But other than that, like he's being sassy to him, and he's like, you know,
it's by that point though, you know how much this ball means to him, even though we all know it's a ball or whatever. It's not real. I mean, yeah, he sells it for sure because he's like screaming after him like he's a baby, you know, and everything. Yeah. And it's one of those moments where it's like, oh man, he lost the thing that kept him sane this whole time. Something that he at least felt like he could play off of and everything. And it's like, it sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, but it's an amazing part of the movie.
He also really sells that I've made fire scene.
I love that.
You feel like Tom Hanks has literally been trying to make fire for 3 weeks.
He's pounding on his chest.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they did some of that in filming, like to where he had failed enough trying it that when he did it, there was something he could draw on there. I don't know. But that scene is so good and funny, but important, right? If he doesn't figure out fire, he dies long before he gets off the island.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like watching it. I stop watching it once he gets back to land. I flip away.
Yeah.
That's an interesting year for Zemeckis because he shoots all of the Hanks bigger scenes for Castaway, waits for him to lose weight, and goes and does What Lies Beneath in the meantime, and then comes back and does the other parts of it.
Well, and that pays off too, right? The weight transformation in the cut in the film is so dramatic. I don't know you could have done it any other way.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
creatively, where he had to basically take his mind completely out of one thing and put it in another. That's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, and Zemeckis has 2 movies in the top 10 this year with the box office.
Good solid year. His movies always seem to do well at the box office and impress most people more than they do me lately.
Yeah,
In the Back to the Future era, I'm much more in on his earlier work, like Flight and The Walk and all the stuff he's been doing lately. I'm just not really feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But all his movies make money.
Yeah,
there's no doubt why he keeps getting work.
That's so weird that What Lies Beneath was such a huge hit. Because it's not enduring, right? I mean,
no, you don't really ever hear people talk about that movie anymore.
Well, it had Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
and it was a pretty slick-looking thriller. But I mean, you and I were working together at the time. That trailer came out. We were like, well, almost no reason to watch that one.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a good trailer, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was still. The trailer still gave you enough curiosity about what was going on, and it was a horror movie essentially that it drew audiences in and everything. But yeah, you have Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer in the same movie. It was kind of it was sort of a no-brainer hit. But yeah, nobody talks about that movie.
No,
today.
not at all.
Going back to sort of the connections, the kid in Gladiator is also the kid in Unbreakable.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Unbreakable came out. This was M. Night Shyamalan's follow-up, and both you and I love this movie to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It made a decent amount of money. It wasn't a huge hit. And man, I always wished that he would have come out with a sequel to this movie, because it sets up everything so well in the first one, but he always has said, I didn't feel enough love for this first one.
Yeah, and he's a touchy guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he made The Visit, and now he's got this new movie, Split, coming out.
Yeah.
And they're both getting more praise than anything he's done in between Signs and now.
Mm-hmm.
Unbreakable has a shitty ending that I hate, where it's almost like they ran out of money or just gave up and said, throw it all on a title card. But up until then, it's nearly flawless for me.
Yeah.
This is the first time any movie had taken superheroes seriously in the sense of saying, what if this was actually real? How would these people react? And it takes David so long through this movie to even believe it's possible. And that seems realistic.
Yeah.
A regular human discovering they had superhuman strength would take a long time to actually accept that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really love this movie. It was just on the other day. I can't not watch it.
Yeah, it doesn't have the pretense of being a superhero movie. That's the thing that I like about it so much, and that's why it's so different and has endured to me. I don't know. We may be the only people to talk about Unbreakable anymore. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe there are a lot of other fans out there, but I've always enjoyed that fact, because you're sitting there watching this and you're kind of like, well, what's his deal? I don't understand. And then okay, he's got superpowers.
Yeah,
and everything. That's amazing. And
another great twist at the end.
Yeah,
too.
It has a great twist, but like Jeremy says, they vomit all over that twist.
They sure do.
Where it's like, man, I'm stunned by all these turns of events that are going on here, and man, and then suddenly it's just like, Bruce Willis told some cops about him, and they went and got him.
The end.
The end. That guy's a bad guy.
Yeah,
he's in jail now.
I don't know if I've ever heard or read him talk about that. I guess it's theoretically possible he was trying to do something comic bookish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At least that would be what I would say if I were him.
Yeah.
As an excuse. It doesn't work at all.
No.
And he doesn't do anything like that in the rest of the movie. But this is my favorite M. Night is good with color example film.
Mm-hmm.
And he's good with color even in The Village. In his crappy movies, his use of color is always exceptional. But in this movie, all the blues and purples and I know some people think he takes it too far, but almost like Wes Anderson, I enjoy the visual aesthetic of M. Night's movies, even when the films themselves are shit.
Yeah, and this is the first time I really noticed M. Night sort of like calling too much attention to himself as a director, because he does a lot of these like they're
spinny.
Yeah, which is cool. But like mainly really the scene where he's talking to the woman on the train and it keeps going back and forth in between the cushions and stuff like that. You see that really get to it's nadir or whatever in Signs.
Yeah.
Because he would do that. He did that in every like chance he got or whatever. It was just like, like, here, I'm going to move the camera. Isn't this slick? This is amazing.
I'm Hitchcock.
Yeah, this is magic.
Well, even the opening credits of that movie are basically, you might as well just scream, I'm Hitchcock.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's black and white. It's got that all the strings. I mean, and he had compared himself to Hitchcock long before this anyway. So,
there was an actual real superhero movie, and that really sort of kicked us off to where we're at now. XMen came out in 2000. Bryan Singer. This is sort of the what we would start seeing, right? A guy who made a huge independent hit.
Yeah.
Has now become a big director behind a comic book thing. We'd see it the next couple years with Sam Raimi and Spider-Man.
And then Nolan.
X-Men, a huge success. When I look back at it now, I don't like the movie as much as it did back then.
Yeah, it's not even probably in the top 4 of the best X-Men
probably
series.
Not.
But what was cool about this is that we had all had superhero movie fatigue of having too many characters, Batman and Robin, and all the Batman things where it's just throw some more villains in there, throw some more
that
characters
movie also
in there,
has
Batgirl,
Poison Ivy, Bane.
Yeah.
That movie's redonkulous.
Yeah, but X-Men at least got the ensemble characteristics pretty good.
Yeah.
And you had Ray Park in there.
Yeah.
You had like really good characters, like sub characters, except for Halle Berry's disappearing African accent.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of that is Joss Whedon's brush up on the script, which gave us all those best jokes, like when Wolverine says "you're a dick," and also gave us the lightning frog line, which he's famously said he intended to be delivered in a different way, and it was delivered as this great proclamation by Halle Berry. But a lot of times, this is the same thing with Crimson Tide and Tarantino's brush up. And you watch the movie, you can see, if you're a big Whedon fan, you can see the moments of levity. That's what makes this movie work, is the interplay between those characters. The second one that'll come here in a couple years is, I think, far superior.
Yeah.
Best one of those original 3. But also, we have to acknowledge this is where we first get Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. And over many, many films, that has become an iconic performance.
Absolutely.
Almost as much as Iron Man was just perfectly cast and will never be lived up to.
Does anybody recall there being any backlash to Hugh Jackman being Wolverine?
I don't recall it, but I know there must have been some, because at that time he was fairly unknown to U.S. audiences.
Yeah, it always goes back to, every time I hear about the backlash, there's backlash for everybody who gets some sort of iconic role. There's always, that's just not the right person, whatever.
Like Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it seems like everybody gets that kind of treatment,
except for Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart on the planet went, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, it's sort of the thing that I always go back to when we talk about like Idris Elba being James Bond. Like, that would be amazing, but there's too many people who think that, well, James Bond is this particular person, so he can't be Idris Elba. And if you were to put him in there as Bond, everybody who likes Bond would still go watch the Bond movie. There's not anybody who's going, well, I'm going to boycott that shit, you know?
Well, and how often are we wrong? A lot, right? Ben Affleck announced as Batman, and the internet takes a year to shit on him. Yeah. And ultimately, most people think he's one of the best Batman ever, and the best thing about Batman v Superman.
Yeah. Well,
we're wrong a lot.
Same for Heath Ledger. Although I was definitely in the minority who was like, "Have you seen this guy?
Yeah.
He's amazing."
Yeah.
But anyway, what else is in 2000 you guys want to talk about?
Well, I want to talk about Almost Famous.
Yes.
This movie is magic.
Yes, it is.
I have maybe never seen a film that felt more magic to me.
Yes.
I became that kid. All right, I fell in love with the girl. I looked up to the rock stars, even though I saw their flaws. I cringed at Mom. And this is why I think he's such a great director, is he's able to do that frequently, put you in the shoes of his main character. But Almost Famous is just, God, you guys love this movie, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So if you've never seen Almost Famous, it's basically set in the 70s. It's a story about a 15-year-old kid who fakes his age and resume to get an assignment for Rolling Stone to go on tour for a few days and cover this fictional band, Stillwater. And it's based on his real life experiences. This is
Cameron Crowe.
Cameron Crowe actually followed around bands like Led Zeppelin and the Who,
the Allman Brothers,
like
I think,
the Eagles.
Yeah.
And so it feels real, right?
Yeah.
Just the same way Fast Times did after he did all that undercover research.
Mhm.
Like, he knows the world he's in right now so well and so much better than I do. But a lot of this just comes down to Kate Hudson. Kate Hudson just fucking arrives in this movie,
nails it.
right? I think she carries the movie. She makes you fall in love with her. She breaks your heart. She's an angel in this movie, right?
Yeah.
The music is really fantastic. One of the weirdest cameos ever with Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah. Also pretty funny, too.
There's a moment 2/3 of the way through the film where the lead singer is fooling around with Kate Hudson, but Patrick Fugit goes to do his interview, and he knocks on the door, and as soon as he knocks, you hear the guy inside go, "Please go the fuck away." And I used to quote that when I managed a 10 screen for Regal at the end of my career. We had a camera to where I could see which employee was outside the door knocking, and depending on who it was and whether I could get away with it, I would say, "Please go the fuck away." Anyway, I just adore this movie. I have the DVD that has like the 4-hour edit. Have you ever seen that edit?
Yeah.
Where like Kyle Gass from Tenacious D is like a DJ interviewing them, but he falls asleep in the middle of interviewing because he's so stoned.
It's called something else too, right?
It is. It's called Untitled, I think.
Yeah, Untitled, but this movie is. You're right. It's magic because it sort of it gets you behind the scenes of what happens to these bands who are up and coming. They're not just some low rent band, or they're not exactly super famous yet. They're almost famous, but they still have some of the problems that a cheap band does, along with the notoriety that a big band does. So it's fun watching them go through all these different types of things on tour and everything. And especially what the heart of the movie is that Billy Crudup is a married rock singer who is fooling around with Kate Hudson, and it's a pretty normal thing. Like, they don't really think of it as this is kind of something I should be guilty about or anything,
right?
Even though they don't want their wives to know about it,
right?
But living in that world and everything, and then you see this 15-year-old kid who's wanting everything to be good and wants everybody to do the right thing and all that. And caring about them, and that's why the Philip Seymour Hoffman stuff is so great too. Because it's like, oh man, they made you think you were cool. Yeah. And hey, man, you're not. I've met you. You are not cool. You know? It's an absolute. And this is one of those movies. If you haven't seen this movie, go and tweet Jeremy about it later, how you're renting this movie and watching it.
It's fantastic. You won't hate it.
Yeah.
Unless you have no soul.
Great soundtrack, too. And there's actually a couple of tracks, or one or two tracks from Stillwater, the band.
Well, and famously, one of the only movies ever to get Led Zeppelin's permission to use a song for that scene when they're driving over the bridge into New York. It's good stuff.
Jason Lee is great in it.
Yeah, I
mean, it's another great cast.
I'm only the fucking lead singer.
What else, guys?
One of my favorite movies to watch any time of the day is High Fidelity.
Yes.
An all-time performance from John Cusack, playing a character that makes you believe that it's actually John Cusack. Supreme record nerd, so much so that they're very condescending to anybody that comes into the record shop. In fact, they admit that halfway through the movie. But the whole thing is predicated on this breakup with his girlfriend and him going through the top 5 previous relationships. And it's hilarious. I mean, the whole thing is hilarious. You get great supporting help from Jack Black in a great turn. And just everybody is humming on this. Lisa Bonet is in there. And it's a great snapshot. And you actually have kind of an arc. But at the end of that arc, he's still an asshole.
Yeah,
he kind of is. This movie was made for music lovers, right? I think that's part of why you adore it so much. And I love it. I'm not going to put it in and watch it regularly, but it does contain my favorite line reading ever from Cusack, and that's like the second or third ex-girlfriend he's called and gotten information from, and he's like so excited to be learning, and he's like, I should have done this years ago. And just the passion of the realization that he's having is so awesome in that delivery. But I think the movie's great. I don't know about the girl that plays the girlfriend. I don't know if I've ever seen her in another movie. She's
No.
like Robin White's weird cousin.
Yeah.
And I think she's foreign and has an accent that's struggling in this movie, but everything else about the movie is really humming.
Nobody comes off, either one of them really come off well. Like, she's not a great person in her character either, and he's certainly not. But he's so wrapped up in this whole fictional universe of music that he's just kind of like, that's what I get to fall back on. I mean, there's one point he's like, I realized to my surprise that I had flunked out of college.
If you and your friends like making lists for conversation's sake, like, okay, all-time 5 best movies by Zemeckis or what have you, this movie is for you.
Yeah,
even if you're not a big movie buff, it's made for movie lovers and list-making lovers.
Well, it is amazing how they compartmentalize almost everything through these lists. Especially, like, I love the one with Jack Black where he's talking about, like, they're talking about all-time songs about death. And they do the one, the Rolling Stones, you can't get what you can't always get what you want. And he's like, minus points for having been in the Big Chill.
And then they all accept it. They're like, yeah, you're right.
Exactly. But yeah, I love High Fidelity as well. And Tim Robbins has a nice little cameo in it too. As this, like, like a hippie, I guess, like a old 50s hippie.
Awful cooking smells.
Yeah. Also coming out in the year of 2000, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, talk about a soundtrack.
Yeah. This may be, even though the movie's great, better known for the soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, because it put the whole like Southern bluegrass thing back on the map.
Especially in these parts, because so many of the musicians on the soundtrack are local Nashvillians, and they did so many concerts and performances and whatnot.
It's the T-Bone Burnett connection that they had from Big Lebowski and all that. And this is it's really hard to pinpoint when Clooney became a marketable name. And this movie is not huge by any means. It didn't make a lot of money. Like, it made $45 million, which is probably a profitable for this movie, but it wasn't a huge hit by any means. It's not really until Oceans that people started going, okay, I like Clooney as a movie star or whatever. But this movie's so fun.
Yeah,
it's so fun, and it's sort of patterns itself over the Iliad or something.
The Odyssey.
The Odyssey. Yeah. It's over the Odyssey.
Same difference.
Yeah, they're the same. They're the same fucking thing.
Super long poem where nothing happens.
But typical Coen brothers wit and charm.
Yeah, screwball type of comedy. Yeah.
Well, and hilariously, Clooney lobbied hard to do his own singing.
And
when he did it, they were like, yeah, no, we're going to get somebody.
Nope.
Which makes it sound like he was like tone deaf, and I doubt that was the case. I'm sure he was fine. He wouldn't have wanted to do it if he was like shitty.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hilarious to me that so many people do that in movies and get it right.
Yeah.
And then this poor bastard didn't.
Well,
get it
and
right.
his aunt was Rosemary Clooney, so
That's correct.
They thought maybe he's got something in his gene, and after they did it, he's like, well, nope, I'm not my aunt.
Let's get Dan Tyminski in here.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and then he knocks it out of the park because that's one of those songs. That's the song that you remember. I remember the most out of Oprah.
Oh yeah. And it's a great song.
Of course, I guess it's the one that's also being played constantly in the movie too, because it gets on the record and everybody listens to it and everything. But it's the song that also I feel like has the most power out of all of it too. But yeah, man, such a fun movie. You got a lot. You got the great to cast in this too. John Turturro and Tim Blake Nelson and all that. So yeah,
all the regulars like Stephen Root is the blind.
Stephen Root. Oh yeah, we gotta battle that competition.
Well, John Goodman's in it too, right?
Yeah.
Who's John Goodman?
Yeah, John
He's
Goodman, who's the KKK
player.
guy. Yeah, because there's a part where he like goes and robs Clooney and Turturro or whatever, hits him with the board, and which is one of the oddest. Yeah, which is one of the oddest scenes ever, because he hits Tim Blake Nelson with the board or whatever, and Clooney's like just sits there and keeps talking to him like nothing's happened.
What are you doing, big Dan?
Yeah. But then later on, when they go to that Ku Klux Klan rally and everything, and it's the most ridiculous KKK rally. Oh, they're all dancing and stuff and running back and doing these ceremonies. Then he's the one main guy. Also in the year 2000,
Wonder Boys,
another great one.
Oh my God,
Wonder Boys.
This is up there in my book with Sneakers in terms of great movies that didn't do a lot and nobody seems to remember.
Yeah.
And this is just such a solid little dramedy, basically, character study of this author who had one huge hit novel that was a raging critical success, and now he teaches writing and has been writing his second book for 8 years, smokes pot, cheats on his wife with the chancellor of the university, and we follow them for a day or two. It's him, Robert Downey Jr., his maybe gay, maybe bi literary agent, and Tobey Maguire, who's this weird, disturbed, pathological lying writing student, on this weird adventure that includes Marilyn Monroe's coat, a dead dog in the trunk, a tuba case, a transvestite. This movie's so much fun.
And a car that they've stolen, apparently, from
the guy thinks they stole it from him. That's never resolved.
Yeah.
They just give the guy the car at the end.
Pretty much.
One of my favorite hilarious car accidents ever, also like Sneakers, where Robert Downey Jr. doesn't drive stick. He's just sitting in the car, but the dude who thinks he owns Michael Douglas's car pulls a gun. And so Robert Downey Jr. panics, and he's driving, and of course, all 8,000 pages of Douglas's novel are in the car. He only has one copy. And, you just see the car kind of squiggle a little bit, and then a hard left turn into a brick wall, and half the pages come flying out. And, of course, he loses all of his work.
And you see Downey, fruitlessly trying to pick up all the pages. He picks up 5 pages and then shows it to Douglas, goes around and picks some more. There's pages everywhere.
He's going to salvage the novel.
Right.
This also has Alan Tudyk in a very small role as the janitor student. But one of my favorite laughs in the whole movie and of all time is he's driving Michael Douglas home because everyone's left for the night, and Douglas came back to pick up a backpack. And so this student is driving him home, and he's like, is it true Errol Flynn used to put paprika on his dick to make it more stimulating for the woman? Michael Douglas is like, well, Christ, how should I know? He's like, you're reading his autobiography, and it's, of course, Tobey Maguire's backpack. And so then Michael Douglas covers it. He's like, oh, yeah, I used to put all kinds of stuff on it. Ground lamb. And then Alan Tudyk's gone for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, Alan Tudyk's like, really? Yeah. Sick. This was directed by Curtis Hanson, who unfortunately died this past week.
Same guy that did LA Confidential.
Did LA Confidential. He couldn't have followed this up with a more different type of movie.
Yeah.
And this is another one. Really, honestly, you could watch Almost Famous and Wonder Boys back to back. It'd be the perfect double feature. They both have the same tone. And it also adds a little bit of flavor to Tropic Thunder when you know Downey Jr. and Tobey Maguire's relationship in Wonder Boys. Yeah. You see the Tropic Thunder thing later. It's like that's what they were meant to do in movies.
They totally sleep together in this movie. Let's not pull any punches. But I love this movie so much. I could watch it right now, and it's got a great soundtrack. Some of that late Bob Dylan acoustic.
Oh,
The song Things Have Changed is what opens the film with the opening credits. And I remember, I'm not a huge Dylan guy, but I remember the music really struck me. What else, guys?
Okay, so there's another 1-2 punch in this year from Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah.
One is Traffic, which won him Best Director. This was another split, by the way. He had the Best Director to go to Traffic
and the Best Picture went
to Gladiator. Meaning Ridley Scott has been shut out a number of times for Best Director, but he does Traffic and he does Erin Brockovich. Erin Brockovich, I believe, was the much bigger hit. Although no, Traffic made about the same amount of money.
Julia Roberts, Oscar winning.
Yeah,
this was a makeup Oscar.
You think so?
I think she's good in it, but I don't think these are actually two of my least favorite Soderbergh movies, and I don't hate them. I like them both, but there wasn't anything about that performance that felt like. I think what it was she had never gotten one. And there was nothing else really to compete with her this year.
Yeah.
But I didn't walk out of that movie going, damn, she fucking killed it.
It's essentially a biopic, right?
Yeah, it is. It's about a person who was a law clerk.
Yeah.
Who ended up learning about all these people and everything. Of course, the real story I come to find out is that the lawyers ended up screwing a lot of these people too. You know, afterwards they weren't as good guys as we thought they were by the end of it. But anyway, in movie terms, she's the hero, and Albert Finney's a great hero in this movie. Whatever. But Julia Roberts certainly had one of the most showy, crowd-pleasing roles, and I think that's what sort of won it for her. I mean, it's a lot of like yelling and
cleavage,
and cleavage and all that. So, but Erin Brockovich is it's a good movie. It's a good solid movie, and Traffic is an even more ambitious movie that he did, and I'd love to know if he did this just like back to back, or like how in the world did he get two movies like this done in 1 year? I mean, I'm sure Brockovich came out early and then Traffic was later or something like that. But what a huge 1-2 punch that
Traffic had that wonderful dichotomy in the color scheme, right? It's really striking. I love that movie. I think it's beautiful. I think Michael Douglas is awesome.
Yeah. Michael Douglas, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Benicio del Toro. Yeah. It was a huge cast in that.
Topher Grace.
Topher Grace. That's right. Who would later show up in Ocean's 12.
Yeah, he must have kind of a good relationship with Soderbergh.
Yeah.
Well, there's a guy who's told us in a couple places online, and if we don't pick Memento as this year's best film, that we are dead to him. I don't know if that will happen, but we definitely have to talk about Memento.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever seen anything like this. This is one of the most inventive, original concepts in all of history, which ultimately I think hurts the movie for me, because some of the rewatchability is gone for me. I realize some people think this is the most rewatchable movie in history, and it ends up historically in my mind feeling a little bit more like a gimmick, whereas some of his other films have really kind of got close to touching my soul. And this one is just really cool idea, very well executed. This is a film, if you don't know, that basically plays out in reverse.
Yeah.
I had never seen anything like that. I'm sure Hitchcock did it when he was a student or something. But
and basically what it does is that it makes you reassess every scene you saw before it.
Right.
Yeah.
At first, you're like, okay, I kind of know what's going on here. And then the next scene comes up and, there's added context here. Especially with the Carrie-Anne Moss character that they do. They does that quite a bit in this where you're like, oh, okay, she's definitely on his side. Then the scene before that, oh crap. That whole scene that I just watched. And I think that's where people are talking about the rewatchability factor, is because they like to watch this with new context each time they watch, and you watch this and it's like it's the very ending of the movie, but the end, which is actually the beginning of the movie, is a perfect ending to this movie, because it just sort of it tells you exactly what is going on with this character all the way through it. He can't make new memories, and he's basically screwed himself for this whole movie because he puts down basically don't trust this guy, and so everything that he does is based off of that at that point. So extremely inventive movie.
It makes your brain work.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, and because we're duty bound to mention Seinfeld every episode, there's that episode where they have a wedding in India.
Oh yeah.
The whole episode plays backwards, just like Memento. Of course, it's like the comedy version of Memento.
It came out before Memento, though.
Yeah, I think it did.
Seinfeld ended in 1998.
So then they stole Memento from Seinfeld?
They sure did. Let's go get them.
Son of a bitch.
Let's get them.
All right, anyway.
Nolan! 5 hours later.
Another one I'm showing came out in 2000, but this is one I'm worried I have the date wrong because IMDb and Google suck, is American Psycho?
Yeah, that did come out in 2000.
All right. Well, I think we should talk about that.
Yes.
Christian Bale, one of his best performances, arguably his best by some. This has a huge cult following.
Yeah.
That quote the business card bone lines and all the lines about Dorsia and the other restaurants they go to. This movie is ostensibly about a serial killer, but then sort of leaves you questioning what you've seen. Right?
Yeah.
To the point where he might have imagined all of it. And I think it sort of, the last time I saw it was a long time ago, but I think it cuts off without really ever telling you.
Yeah.
No, it tells you.
Well, I mean, he didn't commit any of those murders.
No, he
right?
didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Okay.
Because he calls his lawyer and he leaves that big long
confession.
And he's like, I killed a lot of people, and all that. And so then like he finds out later that some of the people he thought he killed are actually still alive and they're on vacation.
Yeah, like Jared Leto's character.
Yeah. But that said, this is a star-making performance for Christian Bale, and he's basically doing Tom Cruise. Bale definitely does a lot of Cruise-isms in this, and it's mainly because he felt like when he watched Tom Cruise, there wasn't anything inside, like there was no soul inside. So he tried to make this as Tom Cruise-y as possible. So that's why a lot of his performance seems like that. It's very dead inside all the way through it.
He does sit-ups while he's watching pornography, and like he's like,
boy, and he loves Phil Collins. Like,
yeah,
more than me.
There's so much quirky shit in here about like his musical tastes and everything, and how he interacts with people. Reese Witherspoon showing up just kind of out of nowhere, and anyway, and like Willem Dafoe like getting in there and doing that creepy like, you listen to the news. Yeah, you like it? You listen to it?
And,
oh my god!
Well, and,
I love this movie. It's Bret Easton Ellis that wrote the book, and this is kind of like his oeuvre, right?
Yeah. He had done. He wrote The Rules of Attraction and Less Than Zero and all that. But the thing about Willem Dafoe's performance is they made him do several different takes. One where he thinks Bale is the killer. Another one where he doesn't think Bell is the killer, and another one where it was just normal line readings or whatever. He's just a detective and they used all the different ones. So that's why you can't really get your finger on what Dafoe is doing throughout the movie, because he's just like, he's asking these questions like, oh, he definitely thinks Bale did this or whatever. And then the next time it's like, oh, he doesn't think Bale did anything at all. It's an unusual movie. It's just the way they've put it together and everything is just, it's really good.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's violent as hell, even though none of it actually happens.
Right.
Fair warning.
Well, and it's got, even though it's very, very like, I don't know, dark humor and everything, man, there's just a lot of stuff in here that'll make you laugh, man. Especially his whole treatise or whatever you want to talk about on Huey Lewis in the news and the sports album and all that other type of stuff. And then he's got the two prostitutes in his room and everything, and he's like, Crystal, don't just stare at her ass, eat it.
Oh my god! And then that scene ends up with him chasing after her with the chainsaw, naked blood all over him.
Through this thing, and drops
it down the staircase, and it has this crazy visceral laugh after that. That's insane. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Good movie. What else, guys?
Well, I'm running out of movies I would intend to vote for, but there are still several worth discussing that I think are on this list. You look like you're about to say one.
Yeah, what about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Yeah, at the time and for a long time, biggest independent film ever.
Well,
right?
It was the biggest foreign language film, yeah. Ang Lee, again.
Yeah.
And showing that guy can do just about anything that he wants to.
He sure can.
He can do, a regular drama. He can do a big, huge wire-fu type movie like this, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Introduces a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people really knew Chow Yun-fat at the time.
I don't think so.
He had done some American movies before that where they were trying to make those Hong Kong style thrillers in the 90s. But none of those really ever connected. And then you had, who else was this? Michelle Yeoh. Yeah, Michelle Yeoh was in this and everything. And, but it's such a beautiful movie.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It was a phenomenon. People hadn't seen... Because when it takes, literally and figuratively, where it takes off, and they start doing these crazy acrobatics that you're just not expecting. Like, you're expecting like a normal kung fu movie, and they're fighting and all that stuff. But then when they get up there on the trees and they're going back and forth and everything, it's just shocking, but it's gorgeous. I love this movie.
Yeah. It's one of those things where there's so many like impossible type of things. It feels like, you know, they don't ground it in any kind of reality at all. These guys can jump like, you know, several feet in the air. They can dance on trees. They can do all these different types of things. But it's as soon as you've gotten into that or whatever, you can just, it's just an enjoyable, you know, martial arts movie. It's great.
Well, and it kicked off a bunch of imitations, right? Because we had the House of Flying Daggers and Hero, and it just became like a genre for 4 or 5 years there. None of them ever lived up to Crouching Tiger.
Yeah, I think I could be talking out of my ass on this, but I believe the Wire guy who was on The Matrix basically was behind a lot of these movies.
Oh, I think he was. Wen Wu Ping.
Yeah. He that's sort of what The Matrix sort of opened up the door for these type of movies, because they started doing these impossible type stunts and everything using wires. And
also, Chris, don't just talk out of your ass. Eat it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a damn good idea.
Let's talk for a second about Requiem for a Dream.
Yes.
Darren Aronofsky.
His follow-up to Pi.
A movie I will never watch again.
Requiem, yeah.
I believe this movie was pitched this way. Okay, so near the end, Jennifer Connelly and this other prostitute are going to have a double dildo while a bunch of men chant ass to ass. But before that, I'm going to disgust you for an hour and a half. That's the pitch for this movie, right?
Yeah. I am one of those people, though, that if you can get around that, it is an amazing achievement in filmmaking.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is a perfect look into all of our addictions that we have in this, in this life. TV, which is Ellen Burstyn's thing, but there's all sorts of other little
lifestyle addictions.
Lifestyle addictions that they throw in there. And it basically, it's showing how far somebody's going to go to continue to do those things and everything. And then, of course, it's way over the top and everything. I guess it's one of those things like, would you rather them just find some other kind of over the top type of thing to do this? And are you just, it's one of those things. Do you hold back or do you just, let's go for it? All right. Double dildo at the end.
Yeah. Dildo all the way.
Yeah. Ass to ass. But not only that, but you have Jared Leto keeps showing up all over the place in this.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird to me. Like, I never have thought of him as a guy who was in a lot of movies until we started talking about this late period, this late 90s, early 2000s period. And he's just in so many.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch.
But you're talking gross, the arm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Jared Leto's arm. But the scene with this ass to ass in it and everything has some of the most amazing editing and music to get combined together. It's one of my favorite scenes. I could watch it over and over again. And I know it's like got a lot of like, distasteful thing. Yeah, porn in it. But it's got a lot of distasteful things in it, but it's just the way it's put together. The
whole movie's edited so well. I'm pretty positive he was trying to make the viewer feel like a hopeless drug addict in certain scenes, and that's accomplished through the music and editing in ways that a lot of other movies haven't come close to. It's hard to watch. While we're saying we like it and Chris loves it and it sounds like we're recommending it, just know going in,
it's a tough movie to watch.
It is an extremely tough movie.
Ass to ass. Just know going in.
Well, and don't go in there thinking you're going to see Jennifer Connelly in some hardcore.
Oh yeah, don't go into
it.
No, it's not porn at all.
No, it's not. It's not sexy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
You feel so terrible for her.
Right. Don't think you're going to go in there and think, this is going to be some serious. No, it's not like that at all.
But it is a filmmaking achievement.
Yeah.
There's no denying that.
Yeah, it is.
Is this what Aronofsky is best known for, you think?
I hope not. I hope The Wrestler is. That's a much better film.
I don't know. I don't know if he's known more for that, though. That might be a better movie, but
Black
I don't
Swan?
know. Black Swan might be.
Yeah.
But I think if you were to ask just a random film student nerd person, they would come up with this one first.
Interesting.
Not
The Fountain?
Totally.
Noah?
Yeah, Noah.
What else do we need to hit here in 2000?
Can we talk about Best in Show?
Well,
yes.
it's definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, this is my second favorite Christopher Guest film. This Spinal Tap is.
Well, do you mean Christopher Guest being in it?
Christopher, this is Spinal Tap to me is a Christopher Guest film.
Because Guest didn't do the movie, but like Okay, so you like this better than Waiting for Guffman, even?
I do.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah. No.
I'm the same
But
way.
it takes the same or a similar pretense and just like this mockumentary type of thing, and follows around these people who are obsessed with dog shows. And some people may be listening that have been to dog shows. I've been to a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
There are these types of people out there that are just ate up with it, and I love his whole cast. He has one of his Christopher Guestiest roles in this movie. And like Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara and Michael McKean is awesome. This movie is hilarious to me. It makes me laugh every time I watch it.
And sort of the precursor to the dodgeball, announcers. You have Fred Willard, in here, basically saying a whole bunch of inappropriate stuff, while his put upon co-announcer is like really knows his shit and everything. That guy's actually an actor. He just learned a bunch of stuff about dog shows, and he kind of that people actually thought he was a real dog show guy. But Fred Willard's playing the guy who's just throws a monkey wrench into everything.
Well, and they're all back together for a new movie or TV show. I think it's on Amazon. Have you guys heard about this?
Yeah.
It's about mascots. And I think his character from Waiting for Guffman has a cameo in the audience at the mascot.
Oh, really?
Like he's playing Corky or whatever.
That's
in
awesome.
This new thing. And honestly, I have no idea if it's a show or a TV series. I can't tell anymore with some of these trailers the way they come out. But he's got the whole gang back together again, and I'm kind of excited about it.
They're great.
Let's go through two dirty sounding movie titles. One is Snatch. That was Guy Ritchie's follow-up to Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Really good movie.
Yeah.
Huge cast in this, and another kind of like 500 stories going on at once, Pulp Fiction-y type of movie. Brad Pitt is the most unintelligible person ever, but it's great.
Oh, it's great. Awesome.
Because the things that you do pick up out of his speech are hilarious.
Yeah.
They're all hilarious. And it's like a whole thing about like furniture and stuff in one speech. It's just like what's going on with us? Benicio del Toro's in this too. Like, was this the most actoriest year ever? Like, there was so many big casts.
Yeah.
Maybe it's always like that, but more of them hit than normal. But Snatch, and then you also have Blow, which came out.
Snatch and Blow is my favorite
That's
party game.
right. That's right. Blow is I know that actually Blow came out in 2001. Shit.
But now we need another dirty sounding movie title.
Quills.
Yeah, Quills. Book of Shadows. Blair Witch 2. Anyway, why don't I just say, hey, Snatch, that was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I love that. I love me some Snatch.
Yeah, man. I love Snatch so much.
I actually think I like Lock, Stock better. I still think that's my favorite Guy Ritchie movie. But it's close. Snatch is really, really fun.
Yeah. Remember the Titans? I know a lot of people love that. I think it's just a normal
one of the best holy shit they were in that movies to watch ever. If you haven't seen it or haven't seen it in 5 years, go put it in. You're going to see like 15 stars in the background.
Yeah. Also, if you want to get like motivated for something, like as they're doing push-ups and Denzel's like right by him going, fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter. Like that would get me fucking pumped up. That Denzel.
Oh yeah.
Fourth quarter.
Danny Boyle came out with a what is this? The Beach is just one of those.
Oh man, I watched The Beach just recently, and that movie is a tale of two different movies.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that first one, Jeremy actually said recently, like I'm totally on board with that first hour.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like it's engaging. Tilda Swinton is awesome. Leo is fantastic in this.
Yeah.
But then what the fuck happens at the end of this movie?
Yeah.
Drugs.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Drugs.
It's weird.
Jim Carrey follows up with the Farrelly brothers in Me, Myself, and Irene.
Another
which
multiple personality.
Has 20 minutes of awesomeness, and then it's like pretty okay after that. Like the big scene where he first breaks is one of the funniest things. I was like doubled over laughing during that. And then after that, there's like a couple of good scenes here and there, whatever. But I didn't like this too much. What do you think of Me, Myself, and Irene?
All I remember, I saw it once. I screened it on Thursday night before it opened on Friday. There was like 10 people there. And all I remember is that time they do it in the hotel when he's the other personality. And in the morning, he wakes up and goes to pee, and it's one of these like 40-year-old virgin shots where the pee just comes straight up at his face.
Yeah.
And he yells, "Why am I peeing like I've been up all night having sex?" And sometimes, don't judge me, sometimes I'll ask my wife that randomly from the bathroom. I don't have any reason for doing it. It's just one of those weird random lines I quote. It's all I remember about that movie.
Also in 2000, Wolfgang Petersen's The Perfect Storm came out. Another Clooney, but man, it might be the movie that got him.
That's the one that made the most money.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This
that was
one,
a big hit.
It was sixth. It made 182 million that year.
It's one of the outliers in terms of those like sweeping boat dramas, right? We get a couple every year, and they all bomb. Like this year, we had In the Heart of the Sea and Their Finest Hour. Nobody went to see either. Actually, those movies both made negative money.
Yeah.
Well. And this one though didn't it already had a true story behind it and a best-selling book and then all that huge cast. Huge cast with Mark Wahlberg and all that and John C. Reilly.
Yeah,
Hunky John C. Reilly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was a tremendous hit.
If we ever seen that movie, it would be wall-to-wall Deadliest Catch quotes.
Yes, it would. Also, little horror movie that spawned 5 sequels, Final Destination came out. I only mention this because, and this will tie in nicely to our theater stories that we're going to get into and everything. I remember a guy at the theater during the scene where the girl gets hit by the bus.
Yeah.
Went over to the master volume and turned it all the way up to 10 when the bus hit the girl and then turned it back down.
Motherfucker.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's a terrible thing to do.
That is terrible.
God.
It's already a scene that, by that point, people getting hit by buses, I think was still a cliche even in 2000. But I don't think anybody was expecting it in this one
it's so sudden.
because she's like yelling and like you just think, okay, well, whatever. And then boom, gets hit with this guy went over and cranked it up.
Well, and I think you could look at these movies as like the precursor to the Hostel and Saw movies in terms of like, what kind of torture before death can we put people through?
Yeah.
That's all Final Destination movies are about,
Those
right?
movies are ridiculous,
Oh, my
man.
God.
And like when they're in scenes where they're not going to die, like everything the camera focuses on, like it's like the worst ceiling fan ever. It's the most faulty wiring of a toaster ever put to, it's just like, what?
Death
Who
is so
lives this
good
way?
at elaborately killing people. It's a wonder he ever struggles.
Yeah.
Right? The whole,
Yeah,
when he
pretty-
wants to, he can pull in 5 elements of a kitchen to kill that dude who loses a ring down the garbage disposal.
Yeah, exactly. Mission Impossible 2 came out.
Woo! Lot of doves.
John Woo, horrible
Stink-
entry into the
stink.
Mission Impossible franchise. And it's sad to me because John Woo is such a great director. And then when he came to America, he started making, very average type movies. They cut him off, man. Something that he normally does, they just wouldn't allow in America for whatever
Except for
reason.
the slow-mo and the doves. I think
Oh
those are
yeah,
both
they
in this
allow him to
movie.
do that because they still want to say it's a John Woo movie.
And Tom Cruise riding a motorcycle.
Yeah, and Tom Cruise. I never saw The Emperor's New Groove, but I know that's a big movie for a lot of
My
people.
wife
that was
loves
fun.
it.
Yeah,
It's
that
got
was
a
a
big
fun one.
following, but I don't think critically it was up there.
Yeah. Pay It Forward was yeah, exactly what Jeremy
Kid
said.
from The Sixth Sense, the guy from American Beauty, and Helen Hunt, and fuck everything up and make a boring ass movie.
Yeah, the whole idea is like, don't pay the person back, pay it to another person.
Yeah.
And so it was a mini movement in America.
Well, it still is. It's like I bet it's in the phrase dictionary. People use it all the time.
Oh,
totally.
my God. Yeah, that movie is terrible. And
Yeah.
Battlefield Earth came out this year. too.
Speaking of terrible.
Yeah. Also, a movie I really like, Frequency, came out.
The Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid
Jim Caviezel?
and Jim Caviezel.
I believe they're making a TV show out of that.
Yeah, it's guy finds a radio and he's able to talk to his dad in the past, and it's kind of got some time travel.
Well, and there's a
elements.
firefighter cop element too. And what little 5-year-old boy in America doesn't at some point want to be a firefighter or a cop?
Yeah.
And then you add in the dad issues. It's a good draw, solid movie. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Big hit. Meet the Parents came out.
Big hit.
Don't really have much to say about it other than it's got the funny ending to me. The funny can you deal with that? Yeah, and it's pretty much a movie that I don't think very many people saw, but it's part of that what is that Aardman Animation Chicken Run came out.
Oh, yeah.
Chicken Run was really good.
It is. And
the Wallace and Gromit
it just
type
didn't
of
capture the people the way. I mean, I think it made plenty of money, but it didn't become a Pixar level hit.
No, none of those have ever become.
No, but I would almost put Aardman. This is the Wallace and Gromit studio. I would almost put them right up with Pixar. Like all their movies have been great.
Oh yeah, and they've got
Shaun the Sheep that just came out last year was fantastic. The pirate one they did was awesome. They just make really charming stories.
Yeah, they've got that British wit to them.
They do,
and it's really clever to watch as a parent too.
Cheese Gromit.
And I'm definitely gonna we have Amoris Paris, which is the Alejandro G. Inarritu movie. Then you have Dancer in the Dark, Lars von Trier. Scream 3 came out. That was terrible. And Boiler Room was a good movie.
Yeah, I like
that was
Boiler
the sort
Room.
of
I just saw part of this yesterday.
Sort of a good follow up to Glengarry Glen Ross, if you ever really want to have that type of thing.
Well, and another eventual superstar cast.
Huge cast in this, yes. But you have a little cameo from Ben Affleck, Vin Diesel, Giovanni Ribisi is the main character in it.
Yeah, Scott Kahn's in it.
Yeah,
it's almost like a pre Wolf of Wall Street type
yeah,
of thing.
Yeah, it really is.
It really is. Without the nudity and cocaine.
It's sort of gotten a following over the years too, which I'm glad to hear. Boiler Room, because when it came out, nobody saw this shit. Dude, Where's My Car?
Dude, Where's My Car?
That's
no one then.
I like Dude, Where's My Car because it gives no fucks whatsoever about what kind of stupidity that they're willing to go into. And if you're gonna be stupid, you be that stupid. Don't try to pretend don't pretend like you're smart.
Gotta go full stupid.
A nice Sam Raimi movie, The Gift, came out. Also.
I like that.
Great movie.
That's a good canoe performance.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Great movie. It's I haven't seen it in forever, but it's great.
The Gift has a really creepy scene. Always kills me. There's a thing where she goes out to look over. Cate Blanchett goes out to look over the water and everything, and it focuses on this fiddle player across the water. And he's just kind of lazily playing it. And then it cuts to this quick edit of like this real jerky stuff. Freaks me out every time.
Yeah. You Can Count on Me. Really good movie. Laura Linney, Mark Ruffalo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Really good movie. Finding Forrester, the Gus Van Sant follow-up to Good Will Hunting.
Is this the one with Sean Connery?
Sean Connery, you're the man now, dog.
You're all the man now, dog.
Yeah. So you ready to vote?
Let's vote.
Let's do it. Today's order is Chris, Barrett, and Jeremy.
Aww.
All right. Well, Almost Famous, easily. It's by far the class of this year for me. It's funny, it's dramatic, it's got the great music, it really gets you in, it really gets you into it. I can't think, every time 2000 comes up, this is the movie that immediately hits my head. So that's the one for me.
Yeah. You're right. I actually really like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That was the main contender for me, but Almost Famous is my pick, too.
Yeah.
Fuck. So I have no say in the matter, and I want to tell you about Patty. Patty was this girl in my high school who was in all the honors classes with me, and she always got the best grade in class by 5 to 10% over the rest of us. And I was smart. I was a smart kid. I got straight A's. But if I got a 92 and I was the highest grade otherwise, Patty would get 100. I fucking hated Patty.
Mm-hmm.
She worked harder than I did. That's probably why she did this. Anyway, Almost Famous is the Patty of this year's movie class. And there's no way I was going to vote for anything other than Almost Famous, because however good any other movie from 2000 is, Almost Famous is better.
Yeah.
And so we have a consensus
We
pick
do.
that gives the finger to the Academy and the dude who's now dead to us, or we're dead to him because we didn't vote Memento.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
Sorry,
That's
guy.
just the way it goes.
Good pick.
I'm not your
buddy, guy.
Hey, guy.
All right, so today we're going to get into Theater Stories Volume 3.
Yeah.
I want to tell you a story.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And leave your bullshit attitude and baggage at the door, because we don't need it.
We have done 2 volumes of Theater Stories. I'm beginning to wonder, though, at some point, we may not have any more good stories to tell.
Or we could just start making them up.
Well, we could.
Or I could get into any of the,
R-rated
stories that I don't tell on these.
Do it.
Right. You could do that. I think everybody's got their, moment of intrigue of whatever in theater. messing around with people.
Sex is what we're talking about, everybody. We could talk about sex stories if we want.
Yeah.
Because everybody that's ever worked at a movie theater for longer than Barrett did has fucked one other employee.
Well, and even Barrett probably.
Yeah, actually, as long as I worked there.
And pretty much every 16-year-old that comes through there is like, all right, I'm fucking the next day.
Yeah.
So Jeremy and I, we both have long movie theater careers. I started back in 1993 and worked all the way up until 2013. He had one that's pretty. It was like what, a good 10 to 15 years yourself as well, right?
Yeah, I would say 10 and a half years.
Yeah, and we all had, we all had different experiences that way. I worked through concessions and floor and all that up to an assistant manager's job and projection and all that. Jeremy's been a GM. I never was that. But the thing is, when you work at a movie theater, it's a community. There's a lot of people that come through. There's a lot of people who are insane that come through, and they're there for 2 hours. It's not like a fast food place where you go, they go and get their food and they leave in like 30 minutes. They're there for 2 hours, and anything can fucking happen. And so. Yeah, so most of the time it's customer related, but there's also some other things. There's some things that you did when you were at the theater that were amazing. I talked about the thing with the Dark Knight where we had 2 prints and we ran it through 7 auditoriums and it was badass.
That is awesome.
And there's some victories, but most of these are going to lean towards what the fuck was up with that. So. Anyway, do you want to start this off?
Sure. I'm going to start with a story from the era when I was a GM, which was only about 2 years at the end of my career. And one of the first things that Regal did when they promoted me was they sent me off to the home office for this thing they called Regal University. It was actually pretty solid, week-long classroom style training, motivation. Most everybody I ever knew who went to that came back legitimately motivated to be a better manager and do better promotions and treat their employees better, and then it all falls off 2 weeks later and you go back to slacking off. But one of the things they talked about there was what to do with repeat complaining customers, especially I was GM of a 10-plex, and so when you have smaller theaters in smaller towns or suburbs, you get a lot of people who complain every time they come. That the sound is off here, the popcorn sucks tonight, it's too blurry, and just, frequent complainers, whether they're trying to abuse the free pass system or they're just dicks. And so this guy who led the training program was like, here's a tactic that I've used that I would suggest. Turn that person around and make them your secret, official, secret shopper, right? Ask them to give you feedback on more than just the movie. Make them feel important, right? Make them feel like you're taking their feedback seriously, and you will almost always find they stop complaining and they turn into a happy customer. And I was like, all right. But about 6 months in, I found this guy at my theater, and he was about 50, dark hair, glasses, kind of mousy, unassuming looking. But the first 3 times I ever saw him, he came out to complain, and I gave him his money back or gave him a pass. And so on the 4th time, I was like, listen, you have a really good eye, and we don't get secret shoppers up here but once a month from the corporate office. So if you could, I'm doing this whole thing step by step like they told me. I'm like, if you could come in, check out the bathrooms, look at the video games, make sure the carpet's not too trashy. Eventually, I even was having him go up in the booth, check the employee break room. Just basically, he came in the next time with a clipboard and this
Holy
sheet he had printed out. And it was basically like my morning walk inspection sheet, only he had made it up himself. And this dude took this shit seriously. He asked me to let him in the stock room, which is where all the expensive inventory is. I didn't do it. But so this goes on for about 3 or 4 weeks, and slowly but surely, he's finding less and less wrong. He's coming up to me just to chit-chat and be friendly and not bitching about stuff. And I'm like, this is awesome. I've won. And one of these nights, it was a Friday night. I had 3 or 4 managers working, and we were all in the office talking, and security guard, which was a sheriff's office, was there, sheriff's officer. And this guy comes to the door to hand me his inspection sheet. I'm like, awesome, man. I'll take a look over this, and we'll try and do better next time and enjoy your movie. And he goes off. The door shuts, and the sheriff's officer goes, who's that guy? And I go, oh, he's this problem customer that I turned into a secret shopper to make him happy. And he's like, that guy's on the sex offender registry.
Oh!
I arrested that guy.
Oh!
He had pictures of his own daughter hundreds of them on his computer.
What the fuck?
And I'm like, I did what corporate said, but I put my teenage employees in contact with this apparent pedophile.
Oh my God.
And I was so horrified.
Oh my God.
And so eventually I said, well, listen, corporate's cracking down. I can't do the secret shoppers on my own anymore. I hope you enjoy the rest of you coming to this theater for movies. And eventually I never saw him again. I think what happened was he exchanged glances that night with the cop that arrested him who was working security and didn't come back anymore.
Oh my God.
But I feel wrong for laughing at that story, but it's just such a complex system of events that led up to this really wrong, potentially really disastrous situation.
Oh, God.
Almost happened. Anyway.
You can't vet those people. You can't vet them.
Yeah, are you on the sex offender register?
Before I make you my secret shopper, let me go Google.
Yeah, exactly. Could you give me some of your
I didn't
information?
know the guy's last name, man. I was just trying to do what corporate said.
Regal University.
But did you sending him on that type of stuff, that got annoying too, though, right?
Eventually, just because he took it so seriously.
Yeah, because I mean, at some point, that guy is going to start giving you reports, and you're just not going to be in the mood for it.
Yeah,
and it's just going to be like any other person coming to complain about anything.
Yeah,
and he's going to have like I saw like just the tiniest popcorn kernel on the floor and all that. It's like fuck you.
Yeah,
that is a horrifying story.
Follow that, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I made a customer cry.
Awesome. Awesome. I like where this episode's going already.
Right. I made a customer cry once. I didn't see it myself. I heard about it later because it was all the fucking rage because I made this woman cry.
Oh, dude, everyone was talking about it.
Yeah, it was now that was a weird day in the first place. Now I came from Carmike where I knew everything. I knew the concessions, I knew floor, I knew box office, I knew projection. And concessions at that particular Carmike, and it could have been throughout all the Carmikes of the world, were really easy. Like it was small, medium, large cups, small, medium, large popcorn, and then you had a small candy and a big candy. That's all you needed to worry about. When I got to Regal, they have nachos, they have a different register, they have all these different things. The first day I was ever told to go down into concessions and learn it, the chick down there who was like the big like concession person was like, well, if you don't know what you're doing, I don't want you down here. So I said, fuck it. Okay, well, all right, whatever. I never.
Free day.
Yeah, exactly. So I never like ever learned concessions at Regal. Like they never put me back there. They never said, hey, come back here and learn some of this stuff. And I would have been willing to do it. Although at the time I was very much a projection person. Like at Carmike, I had done all the stuff and everything. And then when a new manager came in, he said, I like you upstairs. You're great upstairs. I'm going to keep you up there. And so that's all I did for years. So then I went to Regal and they said, well, there's no such thing as projectionist here because everybody's an assistant manager. Because if they call you a projectionist, you can be part of the union that was going on at the time. I was willing to learn all the other stuff, but they never took me down into that concession. And you know what? Quite honestly, if they're not going to take you down there, you will avoid it as much as you can because concessions suck.
That's the worst place to get assigned.
I feel bad for all of those people who are behind concession stand because it's the worst. And they have to stand there for hours and hours before they get a break. And it's like, usually it's like 30 minutes of a break or whatever. So one day, they haven't taught me anything, but I am scheduled as a concession manager. And I was just like, what? Is there going to be somebody down? No, there's not going to be anybody down there. I was like, yeah, okay. I don't know anything about that stuff down there. Okay. So I'm like, a lot of stuff's happening during that day. Like, like at one point a concessionist needed a break. I couldn't give it to him because I was like, I don't know how to run this fucking register.
Yeah.
I don't know how am I supposed to do that? I'm sorry. I'm going to have to wait until somebody else comes in that can take over for you and all that. So it was not a good day in general as far as that is concerned, but it's getting closer to the end where you're like counting down the registers, you're counting down all the money and all sort of type of stuff. And I'm even having to learn the proper quote unquote way to do that at Regal. So I'm sitting there counting the money, how they do it and everything. And like, this woman comes up and she's got a popcorn with her and she's like, yeah, there is just not enough popcorn on this popcorn. And I was, not enough butter on this popcorn. Sorry. Not enough butter on this popcorn. And I was like, oh, okay. And I really, in my head, was like, this is not going to be a hard problem at all. Actually, it's such not a hard problem. You're not thinking that it's that. You're just like, oh, okay, we'll just put more butter on it.
Uh-huh.
So, went over and the guy put more butter on it and everything and gave it back to her. And then she just stood there. She's like, it's been a very tough day for me today. and I mean, this is and I was like, oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. Is basically what I was like. Very sorry to hear that. He's like, I come here, I just want to relax, and then stuff like this happens. And I was like, oh, I'm very sorry, but we gave you more butter, so everything's good now, right? And she goes, you're just making it worse. And I said, well, I don't know. I guess if you're upset at me or if you're I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry we didn't put enough butter on your popcorn, but I don't know if you're mad at me, you can go to customer service and we can give you a pass or something like that. And she just still stood there. And she goes, I said, and customer service is 10 feet behind you. It's not hard.
Oh my God.
I'm 22 at the time. So like that type of way of talking to somebody, you don't really think about the like vitriol it might cause and everything. Like it's just 10 feet behind you, like you're just really being an asshole at that point. But at the same time, I'm like, how do I get this woman to not, do this? And could you like not be like this? Like we gave you your fucking butter.
Whatever you're doing, stop doing it. And I'm trying to get you to that point.
Yeah, could you not? Like, I mean, I gave you your fucking butter, right? Now your butter is buttered. It's completely buttered. Like, I know you may have had to like leave your theater for like it would have been 5 seconds. Now it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're making a big deal about it. And I've told you other stuff you can do, but you're standing there wanting some like magical Shadowgate answer of some sort. Like I'm playing some Sierra role-playing game. Like I'm playing Leisure Suit Larry or Police Quest or some bullshit like that where I'm like, I've got to figure out the exact combination. I need to go to the roof and find the key and open the canary's nest and then get the gold out of that and then give the gold to the fortune teller. And then, what do you do? Like the person just stood there. Right. And so like, I was just like, look, I'm counting. I'm busy right now. If you have problems, just go customer service. And I left. So I started counting the money up in the count room and all this other type of stuff. And like I found out later, like she was just bawling and crying and all that. And even though none of that was my fault, I became the guy who made that woman cry. I made that woman cry that one day. And oddly enough, I was never put into concessions again. It was a win. It was a win, actually.
Nice.
It was also a little insulting just because it wasn't my fault, but it's one of those things that just goes to show that something can spiral out of your control. Like I was as nice as can possibly be while saying some very asshole things. But I didn't bring this on to myself.
You finished the job. Like her spirit was already being destroyed.
Right.
Whatever was going on with her day, and you just fucking finished her off, man.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, I became the guy who made that woman cry. And I had already had the projection incident that I had talked about in the first volume of these stories. I had already had that had already happened. So I've had many other, like at Hollywood 27, it was hard because people would just always berate you about something. It was never okay. Like it was never like, oh, you guys are busy. It's why is this? I mean, I understand that if you're a customer, you walk into the bathroom and it's like trashed and everything. You're just like, what's going on? What kind of operation is this? They've got 50 employees. What's going on? Yeah. Well, and mainly it's because it was so goddamn busy all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you couldn't do anything that you wanted to do. And like, but yeah, you always get these people who are just unreasonable. But
concession customers were the worst.
Oh yeah.
Like that's the only job that I had when I was at Regal, at the theater.
Mm-hmm.
They will berate you and have no problem with it whatsoever. And especially when it comes to popcorn, because everybody wants their popcorn the way they fucking want it.
Yeah.
And whether it's like every quarter of the bag, I want a layer of buttery seasoning, whatever it is on there.
Dude.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the people that, which I understand, like the people that want the candy poured into the popcorn thing. And so what you typically do is you give them the popcorn, you give them the candy, and say, go nuts, go to town, right? But there were people that would come in and be like, there was one guy that wanted M&Ms on one layer, so like a quarter of the bag pulled up, M&Ms on one layer, another layer of popcorn, Milk Duds on that layer, another layer of popcorn, Raisinets on top.
How fat was that motherfucker?
He was normal size. He just had his kid with him. But I was like, what the... Okay, that's unreasonable. Of course, there's a line like 27 people, going back and everything. And I'm like, I just don't have the time to do that. Plus, we got to open it. We got to do all that stuff. And he just fucking lit into me like I had just killed his dog or something. I was like, you know what? I just basically threw the candy at him. I was like, you know what? Do your thing. Do whatever you got to do.
Jesus.
Yeah.
People.
They're the worst.
Well, I wasn't going to tell this story, but hearing Chris talk about working at Hollywood 27 reminded me about it. And this was, today, this theater is a shell of its former self. In its heyday in the late 90s when it was built, that fucker was doing $100,000 a night and was selling out half the 27 auditoriums. And this was just before the theater chains realized they had oversaturated the market. And so they didn't clamp down on payroll, right? So if I was in charge of the floor, which basically meant, well, anything not concessions or booth related. So if somebody pukes, somebody has a fight, auditoriums aren't getting clean, dirty bathroom, complaints at customer service, and the box office manager's busy, that was all under my field of view. And I worked the floor the way Chris worked the booth. Like, they loved me on the floor, and I loved the freedom of it because I could move about the whole building. And I learned very quickly, no one ever pays attention to where the floor manager is. Ever. And they gave me, there were nights that I had 30 ushers. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
In this day and age, I bet you a Friday night they have 3 or 4 ushers.
No, yeah. Just before I left, on a Friday night or a Saturday night, you would have tops 6 people.
Yeah.
And you had to just figure out the calculus of that.
Right.
You have one side where there's at least 2 movies that are doing something. And then you have this other side where there's at least 4 or 5. And once those get out at the same time as those get out, you have to and then you have to do the bathrooms, you have to get breaks, you have to do all these other different things. They put the rules in opposition.
Yeah. But this is back during the era when I just had employees everywhere. I would turn the corner and see 11 ushers marching out of an auditorium into the other one to go clean it. And I didn't have to do very much at all. Now, this is actually going to make me look bad for the second story in a row.
Yeah.
But so unneeded was I on a Friday night on the floor. And this is an era in my life where I was in a wannabe Christian rock band. That on 3 occasions, I literally left the theater for 3 hours at a time, changed clothes in the car, got to a gig, played a show with the Christian rock band, returned back to the theater, changing clothes in the car, and no one ever suspected a thing.
Wow.
The third night I did it was the last night I did it because I cut it way too close. Because while I was gone, a security guard got in a fist fight with a customer. An usher tried to slide down the rail from the stadium seating and broke his kneecap.
What the fuck?
Shit! And one of the other managers, you'll remember, a bit of a Lothario, even though he was married, he fooled around with a lot of women,
right?
Had been caught by his wife in an auditorium sitting next to one of the women that he was fooling around with her on. All that happened while I was gone.
Oh, wow.
I came back, walk into the manager's office. I'm a little breathless from running to get back inside. And the manager inside, it was Charlene, says, "Crazy night, huh?" And I'm like, yeah. And I got out of there as soon as possible and went down on the floor, put a broom in my hand, and I said, I probably shouldn't do that anymore. Because eventually they're going to catch me.
Wow.
That is absolutely true. Anybody I've known who's ever been an usher manager, and I did that quite a bit too there, on Saturdays and stuff like that, I would do it. And that's where I would always run into the Blair Witch vomit and all that stuff.
The Blair Witch vomit.
Yeah, and all that and whatever. But yeah, those things tend to all those things tend to just take care of themselves. Like if you have ushers, you have a few who just kind of know what they need to do, and they don't really worry about what the other people are doing, even though you have like a lot of slackers on the usher crew. You have a lot of people who know what to do, and they just go to theater, and they don't worry about it. They don't. So those theaters are getting cleaned. You don't have to worry about that. Then sometimes somebody will go to customer service, say the bathroom is dirty, and then they find whoever the next available usher is, and they go in there and clean it. So, like, really, your job as an usher manager is just make sure they get breaks and stuff. But even then, you got those guys are going to come up and say, I haven't had a break.
Yeah.
And they'll get their break and all that. So, yeah, you can disappear easily. There's no problem with that whatsoever.
You couldn't do that in the booth.
No.
Right? Because you got to start movies.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that at box office because you literally have to be there to change money in and out. You can't do it in the count room because you're on camera counting money. The only position in the building was floor manager, and I just lucked out, and I'm not a very good example of Christianity to leave your job to play a Christian rock concert. But I was on salary, so at least I wasn't straight up stealing from them. Because I was paid the same amount and I was working 70 hours a week anyway. So, I guess I felt like that was a little bit of damn the man there. You run me ragged. I work till 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm going to go play for Jesus for a few minutes.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it, right? A lot of these places will put all the, there's not very many demands they can put on you at a movie theater. Okay, let's not get it twisted. It's not a hard job by any stretch of the imagination. It's a hard job, but they put a lot of demand on your time.
Yeah,
and your time is, because Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are so busy. You're doing a lot of stuff on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, or you're seeing everybody having fun, and you're like stuck here for a whole weekend. And everything. So a lot of that type of stuff, you start, well, if I'm going to be here till 2:00 in the morning, I'm going to get away with a couple of things.
Yeah, I'm going to go get a taco, damn it.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess this is just going to be the one that just makes us all look bad, and we're just assholes. And all
I love that theme.
Yeah. I talked about before that I've seen people having sex in theaters and stuff. Like, I remember the one in New York where I was just looking to see if people you start the movie at 9:00. And if you don't see anybody in there, you can shut it off and just,
leave it threaded for tomorrow.
Yeah, leave it threaded for tomorrow. So, but there was one that was running, and I saw, open up the door and close the window. At my old theater, my Carmike Theater, which was out in the middle of nowhere. Well, it was behind a shopping mall, but it was like that was in the middle of nowhere because it was like a big field and like there was like a big yard of some sort, like just a bunch of, it was a garbage like ditch or something, like huge thing. And then all these houses were behind it. After a while, when you are closing down a building yourself, especially if you're just waiting for all these movies to get out and everything, you just go up to the roof and you start just going around looking off into the distance and stuff. You don't have anything to do. One time I saw a couple go around the corner and I was like, oh shit, what's going on here? And it was just like immediate. She pulls her pants down. He goes and they just go to town. and you're like, oh, okay. Well, that's something that happens. That's amazing. And they probably did it for like 30 seconds. We're done. And they walk back around the corner and their ride shows up.
We've only got 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. Their ride shows up. They get in and everything. I'm like, wonder what that kind of ride is like, where you're like, I tore it up over there. But so like you get bored a lot of times, and I got bored a lot. I'd get up on the roof and I'd just start looking out. And one time there was another couple that came out, and this was in the back, and there's like a whole like basically virtual picnic area that's in the back here. It was like a big yard and a tree and all sort of type of stuff in the back here. And I saw this couple and I was like, oh, okay, maybe they might do something. And so like, I'm like watching them, and then suddenly I hear, hey, I see you. And I was like, God damn it.
Did you do like a shoulder roll or something?
I waved. I waved at them. I was like, hey, what's up? And what
are you guys doing?
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? No. And then I went down the ladder. I went out and I met them. I said, "Hey, how's it going?" And they're like, "What are you doing looking at us?" I was like, "Well, sometimes you have to check out, make sure that everything's, they're not doing anything and all that. It says, that's all I was doing. I'm sorry." And they talked to him for like 5 minutes or whatever. And so then this story doesn't end really there, because later on, my brother and I went to go get a pizza at Papa John's, and we went to the counter, and this girl was behind the counter, and she's like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" He's like, I said something about working at the theater, and she goes, "Oh, really? There was a guy who was looking at us from the roof for one time." She didn't remember who I was. And I was like, "Oh, I know. I probably know who that is. It's a terrible thing." He's like, "Yeah, he was just looking at us." I was like, "Yeah, man, there's some dicks. There's some dicks that work there. Yeah, it's a perv, man."
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
how's the peeping?
Yeah, how's the peeping time? How's the
Tommy. So I told this story on a video on my Jeremy channel like 2 years ago, and I don't think most people will remember it, but it's worth telling again, and I think the podcast audience probably hasn't heard it. But when I started my career, I worked at a little 5-screen in Kankakee, Illinois.
Yeah.
The Paramount Theater. One big 1,000-seat restored Roaring 20s style auditorium that was badass with a slope floor. And then 4 little mini stadium seating, recently built tiny auditoriums. And my friends and I lived about 30 minutes north in this little suburb called Manteno, where we had cheaper apartments, and it was a little safer part of town. So we would have to drive basically on the highway or back roads about 30 minutes down to Kankakee to our jobs every day, because we all had gone to college here, and then we all got jobs there and kept living there after we graduated. So one day, we were all at work, and a massive snowstorm starts to the point where the theater is not even going to be open. They've told me to close the theater. The roads are basically impassable. And none of the three of us can really get back home. Our 4th roommate was already at home but never left for the day, could take care of the cats and what have you. And so I was like, all right, well, I was supposed to close tonight. Why don't we just meet up at the theater and watch movies all night long?
Huh.
And they were like, all right. And they were both like maybe 3 or 4 blocks from where the theater was. They worked at the same place. So on the way over, they picked up a couple 6-packs of beer and a couple of packs of Swisher Sweet cigars. And at like 2 a.m, we're sitting in Auditorium 5. Smoke, half air in the auditorium. Barely see the screen. We're watching The Borrowers, that John Goodman rip-off of The Littles, which I think ripped off The Borrowers book. Anyway, we've all had 2 or 3 beers. It's cold outside, but warm in here. And out of nowhere, this massive bang on the auditorium door. And then, "What are you doing?" And we all about shit our pants. And it turned out it was Brian, the manager of the theater, who was younger than me. But somebody called him and said that the lights were on.
Oh, God. Come on.
And now I'm like, am I going to get in trouble for smoking cigars and drinking beer in this auditorium? Or even having my friends here? And he was like, "What you watching?" Walked in, grabbed a beer, and lit up a cigarette. Sat there and watched the rest of the movie with us.
That's awesome.
And that's one of my fondest, that doesn't make me look like an asshole, but that's one of my fondest theater memories ever, because it wouldn't have happened had circumstances not forced us. We're never going to go, let's go watch 7 hours of movies in the middle of the night and not sleep tonight. But because we had no real other option, it gave us this completely unique, wild experience.
Yeah.
Fun story to tell.
That's an awesome story, because that's like the dream of any like young 20-year-old guy, right?
Right.
Because
you're
in
run of the theater.
You're in a snowstorm. You just grab some beer and you just sit your ass down and watch some movies with some buddies, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
I actually did the same thing. I had there was a snowstorm, and I invited a bunch of friends out.
Awesome.
It was 95, so it was like Toy Story,
cool.
Sabrina,
Nice
stuff like that. It was whatever, but yeah, that's always a fun thing. My first manager said, "I know that there are a lot of people who come in here on Thursday nights and watch movies. I just don't want to see it. I don't want to know about it. Just don't tell me about it. And I was like, okay.
Nice.
And there were like several of those nights. Thursday nights, sometimes it would be like 50 people.
Well, there were waves even at Regal when we were there together where Regal would try and crack down on employee screenings and then not give a shit. And there were times where we were sneaking like 30 people in the back door and the one exit that had no camera or whatever, like just to keep everybody. That's just why screenings are cool. Now, I later get to a point where I'd rather just watch a movie by myself. But those first several years of working in a theater and going in on Thursday night with employees and managers and watching as a group, that's an experience you can't get any other way.
No.
Anyway. You got another story for us?
Yeah, mine actually relates to one of the movies we talked about today. We talked about Castaway.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I think I have been elected as booth manager when Castaway comes out. So I'm in charge of a lot of things that are going on, like building the prints and all that stuff. So I'm a big Thursday night regular, all that. So Castaway, I think I worked the next Friday night, and what I was told when I came in from the day was Castaway has a bad splice in it. And I was like, and bad splice just means that someone cut the head or foot of the movie wrong on the reels, and it goes out of frame. So I was like, that's weird. Like I don't think we had as much of a screening policy as we had later on. But I just assumed it was a print that was not watched, so it just has a bad splice in it. So the first show it runs through, and I think what I did was I actually pushed the film to the center and found this splice and pulled it out and looked at it, and I shone a flashlight through it and all this other type of stuff, and I was like, I'm just not seeing it. There's nothing wrong with this. I don't know. I'll just I'll run through though, and I'll see what happens. So the first show goes through and there's a bad splice, and I was like, okay. So we go over and the framing knob on that particular projector was getting bad. Like you'd turn it and it wasn't getting into the gears quite as well. So first time though, I was able to get it in frame and everything. And this is during this big scene. Hanks has gone back home. They've had their conversation in the kitchen, and Helen Hunt is out on the doorstep, and it's raining and all other type of stuff. So I'm like, okay. So the next movie, I did the same thing. Now, what happened? This is something I had never seen before. The head and the foot of the two reels had separated in the splicing tape.
Oh my God!
Like they weren't cut wrong. They just found a way to slip down, and it went through in a weird.
So basically, a splicing tape gap.
Yeah, suddenly,
that's crazy.
It just they just pulled apart somehow, and there was like a big gap in the middle of it. So I was like, okay, that's easy enough to fix, I guess. And I just fixed it and put it back, and everything was, you just put new tape on it. We're good. And then the next show goes through, and at this time, I wasn't quite familiar with our projectors to the point where I could just fix anything. Like I would get to that point way later on and everything. But the framing knob issue was a big deal with 14. It went through again. It did the exact same thing. Went out of frame. Same deal. The film had pulled apart for whatever reason. And maybe it was just the way it went through in the projector or something like that. But on this particular showing, I could not get it in frame. I couldn't get the framing knob back to where it needed to be. I couldn't, because it's a rainy scene and all this other type of stuff.
Hard to even see.
I couldn't see where the frame was. So I'm sitting there like, I started up. It's in the same exact out of frame as it was when I left it. So I stop it again, and I go back and I reframe it again, and then I start it. It's back to out of frame, the exact same spot. So I'm like, God damn. So then you start experimenting. You're just like, well, I'm just going to try something completely different. And then it's way off on the next one. And the framing knob just won't work. That's the problem. I can't get it to move. But at some point you get so frustrated and everything. And I was just like, I started the fourth time I started it and it went out of frame again. I was like, I cannot fucking get this goddamn thing to There's like 230 people, and the windows aren't exactly soundproof, by the way. Like, you can talk at a normal volume and people will hear what you're saying. I screamed it. So like, I'm sitting there like trying to get this perfect and everything, and I look down and there's like two guys in the front row, very front row, turning around, giving me that that guy up there. I'm sure that the people in the back were just like, oh my God, this guy's pissed. What the fuck? I did eventually get it back, like I finally found the groove it needed to get into to get it in frame, because eventually you just try every single sprocket hole until you get it. And I got it up and working and all that. And then after that, I told the manager, I was like, look, I'm just going to make an experiment. I'm going to move this print to another auditorium. I learned also that these framing knobs that were Hollywood 27 had 2 Allen screws that were inside them that they would become loose and you'd have to tighten them, and they were very hard to get to. So like I had to learn about that and to get the framing knob back and everything. But just because the thing had happened all day and it was not a bad splice, I was like, let's move it to another auditorium. Never happened again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We switched exact same prints too. We just put Castaway from 16 into 14, 14 into 16, and nothing happened again.
All right. Well, there's a mystery you didn't solve.
No. So weird.
Thanks for the cliffhanger ending.
What?
Was it a ghost?
It was a ghost. It was a ghost.
Yeah, no, we never found out. Never. I'm only assuming that it was because of the way the framing knob was positioned, and it had a certain distance to go through in the projector itself, that it just yanked those two pieces of film while it went through it. So,
well, we got any cues today?
We do.
Question.
I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
Okay, first question. What TV shows do you recommend? You did a whole Game of Thrones episode and have mentioned Breaking Bad a few times, but what other ones do you guys love? I was thinking you could suggest some. Who wants to go first?
Because Jeremy is going to say all the ones that I would normally say, I am going to mention that I watched one that I don't know very many people watched, and it was on just recently. Vice Principals was on HBO. Now, it's not a great show by any means at all, but I love Walton Goggins. The guy is perfect in this, and Danny McBride, of course, is perfect. He's just about 2 vice principals who want to overthrow the new principal that's come through. The old principal's Bill Murray, who's like has a cameo in the first episode, and then they figure, well, we're vice principals, so they're going to make one of us the principal, and they end up bringing in some other lady to be the principal who's been a principal at like 5 other different schools or whatever. So Goggins' whole thing is, let's find a way to get her out and we'll be the principal and everything. So the whole season is this, of them doing awful fucking things to this woman. But like there's a lot of like good characterization in this and everything. Just like, we get to know why Goggins is the way he is, why the principal is the way she is, why McBride is the way he is. And I love, this is something that happened in Eastbound and Down a lot with him. I love how just cavalier he is about just saying fuck and everything in front of students. It's just, he's just like a normal thing. You guys you need to stop fucking around in here and whatever. Like, it's just, nobody ever says anything about it. And that's what's so funny to me about it, because no one would ever get away with what Danny McBride gets away with in these things. But ends up with a cliffhanger ending that's pretty I might be interested in season 2. But if you're not really into that Jody Hill, Danny McBride stuff, like Observe and Report and all that, you probably wouldn't like this show. But that's something I would recommend, just if you're interested in that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to name anything that's like an undiscovered gem to you that you've never heard of. But I know that Better Call Saul doesn't get a ton of ratings.
Yeah.
It gets a lot of critical appeal, and it gets enough ratings to stay on the air, but there's not a lot of people watching it.
No, that's
weird. I hate that.
Yeah.
Because it's so a different animal than Breaking Bad, and it's just as good in the quality level. Deeper dives into the characters and what makes them tick. And, I love Fargo, the TV show. if I was going to pick one of these on my list right now to go home and watch, it would be that Fargo show. But I think I have to recommend Better Call Saul ahead of that, just for both how fewer people have probably seen it and there's a richness there. Fargo is like a cool crime caper with some humor, but there's a depth in Better Call Saul that I never saw coming. And there's been one or two episodes every season that have just rocked me, where I'm like, wow, I didn't expect to have these many feels. And I just can't recommend it enough if you haven't seen it.
It felt like it was going to be a knockoff when we first heard about it.
Yeah.
Like it was just going to be like, oh, it's going to be a fun little comedy with, Bob Odenkirk and all this. And they really turned it into something that's worth watching every hour. Like now, I think possibly they've been sort of instructed to make it more Breaking Bad like, because the Mike Ehrmantraut character is starting to do a lot of his.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but he also, I don't know if they ever meant for him to be as big of a character as he is when they first started this. Maybe they did, but it seems like maybe they got an edict that said, this isn't Breaking Bad enough. Let's get all those old characters from Breaking Bad in there and like find a way to have them interact and stuff. So there are a lot of times where Better Call Saul's half Saul and half Breaking Bad.
Yeah, but it works.
It works.
Well,
yeah.
people don't know what to make of this show. Like if I'm telling people about it, like I've talked to attorneys, said, "You've watched this, right?" And they're like, "Oh no, I have no idea." It's like kind of a legal drama almost.
It really is.
There's a lot of stuff with that. And then, like, the whole relationship between Bob Odenkirk and Michael McKean and his brother and everything.
That's the soul of the show.
Oh, man. I mean, I guess people just don't know how to interpret it, whether it's a knockoff or whether it's this or that. But they harmonize all that stuff.
Well, and I'm a little brother, and so... And I think for the first 20 years of my life, I was mostly just following my brother at everything that he did. I probably mentioned this before, but you can see that in Jimmy, looking at his older brother. He wants to impress him. He wants to get praise from him. But ultimately, the only way he's going to be able to do it is to be the kind of loser his brother thinks he is.
Yeah.
And that's the only way his brother will really ever accept him. And it's tragic. It's tragic. Even though there's like belly laughs in every episode, it is way less comedy than I expected and way more family drama.
And this last season between them was the best.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only been 2 seasons, but it was the best part of the show by far was their dynamic.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Because that was a whole long, like 5 episodes that went through them trying to get over on each other, basically.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I'm not going to break any new ground because a lot of people have seen this, but I can't recommend Stranger Things enough.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of things going for it. It's the nostalgia. Their use of music, by the way, is just like unparalleled in anything that any TV show I've ever seen. But like the characters are terrific. Those kids are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Winona Ryder kills it. The sheriff, the characters.
Yeah. He's been in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, it's just really good, and then it's genuinely creepy too. Matthew Modine is this very covert type of scientist that seems to know what's going on. The creature effects are awesome. It's also compact. It's like 8 episodes. You can burn through them like in a weekend or something like that, and it's worth it. It's really, really good stuff. It's on Netflix. Worth a look for sure.
Yeah, and has got officially a 2nd season coming.
Yeah,
so
I can't wait.
It'll be great.
Yeah, and it's been so well received. I still have yet to see it because, like you just said, you made 8 hours sound easy, but carving out 8 hours of my life is not as easy as it used to be. But it's been so well received. I worry a little bit that we're going to get a string of knockoffs and wannabes, that we're going to get this run on 80s nostalgia.
Oh, probably
we for sure will be getting that.
And
I mean, we're already sort of getting that, and that's sort of what this new season of South Park has started to tap into, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
The first 3 episodes I've seen there's this underlying thing going on in this season, and we find out about these things called member berries, and all these berries are sitting there. Remember Tatooine? Remember the 80s? Remember the 90s? Remember all this stuff? All that, and it's like this sort of this underlying thing going on in the town where like there's sort of a need to get back into the past or relive the past and all that. So the Stranger Things does sort of tap into that. And there is probably going to be more that we see. Wouldn't be surprised if like a Last Starfighter TV show came out or something like that.
Honestly, I'm at a point now after Lion King yesterday and the live action announcement, nothing's going to surprise me.
Yep.
I'm only going to get different levels of angry from this point forward. It's not going to be a shock anymore.
Nemo. They're going to do Nemo.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. We laughed about Lion King when we made that movie recipe, and now they're doing it.
Yep.
Nemo will happen.
Yep.
You rat fuck.
All right, next question. Who is your favorite minor comedic relief actor? We take this to mean, I guess, like, somebody in like a drama or something like that that provides some comic relief. But there's also a lot of like minor comedic roles in comedies that almost steal the scene.
Yeah. When this question came up, all I thought about were comedies, and I tried to think of ones that weren't just necessarily cameos, but they were maybe smaller actors, at least then, that came in. And so one is Steven Stucker in Airplane, who in many instances steals the movie because he's just goofy as hell.
Yeah.
Everything he says is non sequitur and just doesn't make any sense, but he's great in it. I also thought of Jay and Silent Bob in both the Clerks movies.
Oh. Yeah.
Though in most of the other, I think, Mallrats, they have a few scenes, and then
they've got
and then in Chasing Amy, there's one scene, but in Clerks, they're always kind of like sewn into like what's going on, and every time it's pointed at them, they're doing something funny. It's always great, especially in Clerks 2, where Jay is doing the Silence of the Lambs thing. Because he cuts away from it. He just starts playing the music from Silence of the Lambs, and then the next time you see him, he's got his penis tucked in between his legs. And also Sam Rockwell in Galaxy Quest. That was another one.
He's fantastic.
Yeah. So
I'm going to go with Steve Zahn and That Thing You Do.
Yeah.
This is before Steve Zahn is really a big, huge breakout star, but he gets, I'd say 90% of this film's funniest lines, like the interview on the radio where he cuts off Tom Everett Scott and goes, "This one time we stayed up way past midnight," and then he starts laughing because he can't control himself.
Yeah.
Or when he's playing cards and he's like, "You got to be quick with me," and he shows his cards and wipes them right back, and he goes, "I'm from Erie, PA." Or in the van, and they're signing with their first record dude, and he's like, "This nice man in a camper gave us stew, want to put our song on the radio. Give me a pen. I'm signing. We're all signing." And you go through that movie and everybody's charming, but if you're looking for laughs, it almost all comes from Steve Zahn's character.
Yeah.
And he just is the perfect guy to play that role. I think my favorite line in the whole movie is when they finally get with Tom Hanks and he's like, "We're going to change the spelling of your name. No more O-N-E wonders." And Steve Zahn's like, "As in, I wonder whatever happened to the O-Neaters?" Yeah. Just all these little throwaway moments that are just perfect. Anyway, talked enough about that movie, but he's great in it.
Yeah. Immediately what I thought, I also thought about comedies for whatever reason. I don't think Rick Moranis' character in Ghostbusters is underappreciated.
Yeah.
As the Keymaster. He's just, he brings like this, I don't know, like a relatable nature to this super nerd that's just like going on about like, taxes and, everybody's story and like, yeah, he's a CPA and it's just like, he sells it so well. And then of course, after he gets possessed and all that stuff, it just goes off the rails and everything. And he's like, "Do I want some?" And Egon's like, "Yes, have some." He's like, "Yes, have some."
Yeah.
He gets some great lines and just a great character.
Scene you're talking about where he's talking about the taxes and the CPA and all that was completely improvised.
That's insane.
Wow.
It was not in the script.
Wow.
He came in and just did that. So that's freaking amazing. It's one of those things where Moranis probably stopped at the right time. He became a family man. It was what he basically retired to do. But I don't know if there was going to be any room for Moranis like in the 90s and that type of comedy and everything just didn't fail by the wayside.
Quick one. Who made the best cameo of all time?
Well, that question is super, super hard, right? Like
best of all time is nearly impossible.
All time. Like to me, you have to sort of just go sort of condense it, I guess, into like, what's the most impactful? Alec Baldwin and Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah,
It's one of those where that character's not even in the play that David Mamet wrote, and then they put him in for the film, and he comes in and he kills it. And listening to all the people talk about Baldwin at that time, because he was just hot shit, and like every actor in there is an established big time actor, and they see this asshole come in and start yelling at him. They got the dynamic perfect for that scene and everything, and perfect lines, perfect delivery. Baldwin comes in and kills it.
Yeah, he does. Absolutely. I'm going to steal Barrett's because I'm a dick, and I'm going to say Sean Connery in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And it's also one of the most needless and throwaway cameos ever. That's not a movie that's like screaming for a cameo, but it feels more like somebody important on set was good friends with Sean Connery, and they knew they were going to have a scene with the king, and they thought, why not get somebody great? And so Connery returns at the end of the movie on his horse, and he's King George or whatever the
Lionheart.
King George.
King whoever.
Right.
But great cameo. I remember, not a great movie, but I remember while watching the movie, I probably gasped. I probably was like, oh, that's Sean Connery.
Well,
oh my God.
Yeah. And then they sort of parodied that in Men in Tights when the Patrick Stewart shows up at the end.
It starts making out with me.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember about Men in Tights was the song, We're Men in Tights. And then that line, are we not men? No, we are not men. Like,
All right, for my cameo, I'm going to go way back and do something completely out of the blue, and it's Truman Capote and Annie Hall.
Ooh,
wow.
And that famous park scene where Woody Allen's just riffing on people going, walking through the park and everything. He's like, these guys came back from Fire Island, this kind of thing and everything. And then he's like, who's this guy? It literally lasts for like 2 seconds. Who's this guy? He's the winner of the Truman Capote lookalike contest. It's fucking Truman Capote! He's in there for like a half a second.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That is awesome.
So that is it for this one. Keep going to SoundCloud and giving us your thoughts, whether we're good, we're bad, whatever. But that will be it for this episode. For Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Sherrill. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit Cinemasins.com.
Yeah,
Freaking
good
Canadians, man.
I
We don't
know.
understand what makes them laugh.
No, exactly.
They're our second biggest listeners, I think.
We love Canada.
I'm sure. Yeah, exactly.
Canada is awesome.
What an asshole!
I really like having satellite radio now because, well, variety. But do you ever listen to the Tom Petty station?
Mm-mm.
He does his own voice breaks.
Oh,
and he just sounds like the happiest little stoner because he's like, you're listening to Tom Petty Radio, and this is Tom Petty. You didn't expect it to be me, but it is. It rules. Plus the porn station.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of moaning.
Just a bunch of moaning.
Is there a porn station still?
No.
Oh, no, there was
be.
the Playboy channel was on there.
Oh yeah.
You remember
that?
that?
You had like women taking calls and stuff like that, and guys would call in and try to come up with their best scenario and stuff, and they would sit there and
encouraging.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, okay, and then they'd start talking and like, okay, you're not doing anything for me right now, and they're like, okay, well then I kiss you really hard, so like, yeah.
There was at one point when it first started, I think it was XM, it wasn't Sirius when they were separate. There was a Penthouse station, and then Sirius had the Playboy station. And I was riding with my mother-in-law, my future mother-in-law, and we were just kind of doing errands. They were living in Huntsville. And Candy was just like flipping through, the stations and everything. And like she got distracted on the Penthouse station. She was talking, and they started doing that shit with my mother-in-law in the car. Like, let's change that.
Let's get out of this real quick.
You're sliding your hand up my thigh.
Yeah. Oh, it was so ridiculous too. Like these girls would be sitting there like, during I don't know, an hours long kind of session. They would like everybody who came up with good calls, they'd somehow find a way to have 5 orgasms during the
Cindy, I totally came.
Yeah, I know. Didn't you see?
That's the best part of Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he's on that tear where after he breaks up with her and he screws a bunch of girls, and the girl's like, I just came.
And he's like looking down at her like,
I want to be my L over somebody's T's.
Yeah.
I said Han. You can cut that Han. Or leave it in now that we're laughing.
Yeah.
It's a really dirty sounding movie title, The Whole 9 Yards.
Ah.
No, it doesn't sound dirty, but awesome comedy.
Or Coyote Ugly. Anyway.
Coyote Ugly. Yeah, there's
anyway.
John Goodman's best performance in that movie right
Yes.
there. The movie that was based on a bar that spawned a new generation of the same bar, basically.
There's still a billboard up on the interstate on the way over to Chris's place. It says the most famous bar in the world.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, good for them.
Mm-hmm.
What were we talking about before we all? I don't know.
You were on Snatch and Blow.
I fucking derailed this shit.
That's all right. That's all right because unlike a train, that was a tactless thing to say.
Anyway.
We can right the rail and get back on track.
But yeah, Jenna Fisher is so funny in that because she's keeps throwing herself at him and everything, and he's like, "Oh, how dare you!" He keeps. I'm married. Got her boobs hanging out and all this other stuff.
Do we?